there's power in making sure you own a category, you double down on why it's working, why there's value to it, and then staying true and a consistent theme of your story is important. Takes time.
Welcome to Playbook Broken. Hello, and welcome back to Playbook Broken, where we deconstruct what's no longer working in marketing and business and talk about what to do about it. Today, we're stepping in the world of AI-fueled advertising, enterprise marketing, and strategic reinvention. Ryan Nelsen, CMO at StackAdapt, an AI-driven programmatic marketing platform. Welcome, Ryan.
Hey, thanks, Marc. Excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. Ryan's been on a crazy ride, like all of us have, many of us have, helping Qualtrics grow from 40 million to 800 million bucks through the acquisition by SAP. Played a key role in leadership at MX, turning into a fintech force. And as I said, are now the CMO at StackAdapt. He's rethinking what high performance marketing looks like at scale. It's the dream. Ryan, so happy to have you.
Excited. Yeah, it's been fun. Excited to dive in a bunch of fun topics today.
Yeah, me too. Let's start with some background. So as I mentioned, Qualtrics and MX, StackAdapt, your path runs through some, incredible growth stories. When you look back and think forward at what you're doing now, what are some of the common threads from a playbook standpoint? What are those plays? How common are they? Have they changed a lot? Where's your head at there?
Yeah, I think so. I got advice early on to join the fastest growing company with the best product. And as a marketer, I think we all can attest to having products to promote and market, having a great growth culture is very helpful. Not all of us, and I've certainly been at companies that have not always been on a complete rocket ship as well. And so I certainly appreciate when there is opportunity for us to go bold, go really big. And so I'm a product marketer at heart, started as the first product marketer at Qualtrics, and I got an opportunity to be really close to product and then see how that strategy infuses into go telling a story to the world in a bold way. So that's kind of what's kind of been a theme throughout, all been at data companies. So I wouldn't say I'm the most technical or most data focused or data driven person, but I certainly appreciate the value of it. So I think it's been a theme throughout the career.
How do you manage sort of in that context of being a sort of data math companies, being a marketing guy, storyteller, like has that evolved in your thinking, or were you just always a great sort of storyteller from the beginning?
No, I don't think so. And I'm still always working at it, but I think data is powerful. There's the heart and the mind of marketing, art and science. And I think as marketers, oftentimes we have to flex our muscle in one way or the other if we're strong in one way versus the other. I tend to be a little bit more creative on the creative side and a little bit less technical. So I like to surround myself with great technical folks who like to geek out on the latest advancements and things, and then kind of be my inner circle to help kind of bridge up some of the blind spots I have.
I've been working on storytelling myself lately, and it's interesting, the shift to sort of the desire for video and this podcast itself. And I've been experimenting with oddly enough, TikTok style videos, but on LinkedIn is interesting because it's pushing me to okay, how do I tell a story in 60 seconds with some data or with some insights? It's a really good exercise. Actually, I'm enjoying it. That's great. So you're about a year, maybe a little more than a year now into your new seat as CMO at StackAdapt. You break your femur wakeboarding, which we'll talk about a little later. 5 weeks into the role, that's got to be a unique onboarding experience. Talk about broken playbooks, broken femurs. How did you manage to push through that? What was that like?
Yeah, so I was about 5 weeks in. I was supposed to go to Cannes Lions the following, 2 days later, and I was at Lake Powell in Southern Utah, best place in the world. I was wakeboarding and still trying to do tricks like I've done when I was younger, and I've wrecked way worse before. It was kind of a freak accident, just kind of the pressure of the water. And I broke my femur. I got flown out of there, bumpy ride in the boat to the marina, and then I flown out of there because there's no real hospitals around. But I just distinctly remember calling or just texting my CEO and just like, hey, I don't think I'm gonna be able to make it out to Cannes. I don't know yet, if I pop my hip out or what. But anyway, the ER doctor said, yeah, you're not flying tomorrow. I asked it, but it wasn't going to work. So 6 weeks, I was basically no weight. And then I just got after it, and physical therapy, sled pushes, all that stuff, just getting it going. And definitely the metal went through it, set off the TSA detector the first time, but since then it has not. So something's happened to make sure that I was worried about.
You did get to Cannes Lion this year, correct?
I did. Yep. It was fascinating. It was incredible to see just the creativity that's happening there. A lot of money being spent, probably a lot of wasted money. And some, if I'm, being, uber transparent about kind of what I saw there, I think it's just a disconnected experience as well. There's just a choose your own adventure experience where there's so much to see, so many people to meet, so many meetings, so many different celebrities speaking all at the same time that it almost is like a little bit of a frustrating experience that you can't experience at all if you just kind of wish it was spread out a little bit more. But I totally get it. Pretty epic event. I was very thankful and grateful to be there. We work with a lot of marketers and creatives as well, so it's our audience. So we met with so many forms of clients there, which was really the most rewarding part.
Definite bucket list item. Go through that experience and end up back there a year later is a testament to your fortitude and willingness to do the hard work, which is great.
No, it's been a great year. I'm very thankful to be at the company. We're growing fast and a great team. So it's been so much fun.
So here on Playbook Broken, we have these different formats, breakdown moments, strategy workshops, new rules, kind of whatever the guest and different people want to talk about. Today, we've got a playbook breakdown and maybe a little moment too. You mentioned in your notes that you sent me before that you guys are moving up market, expanding from mid into the enterprise space. That's common. I think with some certainly in the MarTech space, HubSpot kind of is an example that comes to mind of a company that did that very, very successfully. SEMrush, who I work for, we're doing that right now, which is interesting to see. It's also, I think, a textbook moment where playbooks start to crack. That like whether it's PLG or SMB, mid-market and then enterprise is such a different experience. What were the first signs that the old playbook wasn't going to cut it and needed to kind of be refactored or rethought?
Yeah. I think there's an element here of, follow the demand and kind of where customers are seeing value. And so we started to see a lot more of our customers spending more on the platform, running bigger campaigns, started to see them refer and, say very nice things about our platform and our people and our team. And so we started to be pulled into some of these maybe bigger logos or bigger opportunities and built out an enterprise sales team to focus on that area while we're still maintaining a lot of our core focus within our mid-market segment and making sure that there's, a lot of love and focus and innovation there as well. So that requires a lot, oftentimes repositioning a company. Oftentimes, if you think about HubSpot and Salesforce, let's use that analogy for a minute. We're actually, bringing HubSpot on board. And, 5 years ago, I probably would have thought we would, at our stage right now, at 1,500 employees, that we would have outgrown HubSpot. But I think they've done a good job of changing up the narrative in their mind that you don't outgrow HubSpot. And I think, and certainly you don't outgrow StackAdapt. And I think I want to make sure that we're adding value at every stage of a customer's journey. We still use Salesforce for our CRM, but for all our marketing automation, connecting that into HubSpot. I think it's just a good analogy of maybe where we're at today of, StackAdapt being the HubSpot of programmatic.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I mean, did you look at their playbook and have you studied that kind of transition and actually adapt some things, whether those are KPIs or team structures or philosophies in terms of making that jump?
I think I haven't actually ever worked with anybody that's been at HubSpot. So it's just kind of been from the outside in looking in and seeing some of those things. Like I look at obviously other companies, Atlassian and others that have been great companies and taken what could be maybe a tool into a platform, into basically a revolution. And so, but I think HubSpot, obviously they started the revolution of inbound marketing a long time ago and really grabbed onto that and held onto that and then made something of that. And I think there's power in making sure you own a category, you double down on why it's working, why there's value to it, and then staying true and a consistent theme of your story is important. It takes time.
Yeah, it does take time. And there's a bunch of different places to go there. I mean, you said something just now like tool into a revolution, which is fascinating. I mean, I think you're talking about the category of one that HubSpot created, which is inbound, right? They invented inbound. And what's interesting now is, of course, inbound is sort of like the shine has come off. Even former, CMO, I think it was a CMO, but former senior executives from HubSpot are saying, well, there's new things, right? So there's a new revolution to be had. It's interesting. I mean, so I love that phrase of a tool into a revolution is fascinating. And obviously having a category of one seems to be at least a short-term strategy until everybody kind of catches up and starts, hey, we want to do this too. But I'm curious, what are some surprises as you've gone through this process or hidden landmines where you're like, that is not what I thought was about to happen?
Yeah. I'd say we're on a journey. And so we're growing incredibly fast, the fastest growing DSP by far in many ways. And in May, we launched a MarTech platform, a marketing automation sort of email platform that can connect in your programmatic ads into your email. And so you can now connect more of the ad tech and MarTech ecosystem. And so the evolution of StackAdapt is being a one-stop shop for an advertiser and marketer to run your ads across channels, connect to TV and digital out of home, but then being able to follow up on those through email or other channels. And so I definitely see a consolidation in the industry around tech. I think the last 10 years has been, there's been point solutions that have been used, and SaaS has been very, very hot. I think in many ways, AI, as we all know, is disrupting so many things, including SaaS and license models, et cetera. So I think as marketers, we think about what's the outcome we're trying to drive? Who's our customer? How do we go create lookalike models and use data to go find more of those customers in the channels that they're spending time? And it's fun that StackAdapt can run connected TV ads. As a B2B marketer, you wouldn't normally think about, I haven't run a ton of TV ads, in the past, but I saw a new light coming to StackAdapt to see kind of the brand and demand and connecting those two worlds together, which we could probably dive into.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's so much there. You kind of hinted at a marketing mix. It's fascinating to think about, quite ingenious, paid, programmatic, and email.
Mhm.
And you're right. I think that the consolidation and the mixing and matching of those channels is fascinating. Moving beyond LinkedIn, Google, are you, and especially video, I think is what's on my mind. You mentioned CTV. We've done some work with a bunch of different CT providers. Well, what channels are breaking through the kind of traditional noise from your perspective?
As a B2B marketer, and those that are in B2B, obviously LinkedIn is kind of a core go-to source, and we use them as well. But what's fascinating, the mindset I've had shifted since I've even just joined the company is, how does our brand show up in places that are not in a business setting, that becomes a part of their everyday life, and sort of you create sort of raving fans because you show up in authentic ways in kind of their day-to-day flow. And so, if you're hosting a big event, it's in maybe a major city, showing up in our digital out of home and kind of the display, the billboards throughout the city. And maybe, when they hop in the Lyft or the Uber from the airport to their hotel, they're seeing ads, connected to, welcome to Nashville. And and it connects you to a personalized experience. Then maybe they get to their hotel room and they, that later that evening, they're watching their favorite show, and you got to kind of avoid the creepiness of it. But there's a
Yeah.
personal element of it that's, all those touch points happen outside of their regular day-to-day in their day-to-day job flow. And that's the power of a programmatic platform, to be able to open up that opportunity, which I think we're seeing a lot more excitement and momentum in the B2B.
I'm working on this. I'm working on this theory. I've spoiled it already a couple of times on the podcast. And it's basically, what we see is this sort of pendulum shift back from pure performance marketing, rebalancing a little bit, I would say, because performance marketing is never going to go away. But brand kind of took a hiatus, I think, for in many marketers' minds for probably far, far too long. And so I've got this notion that like Don Draper is back. He's a zombie, but he's definitely reanimated, and he's back for good maybe this time. And I think what's interesting about what you're talking about, if you can avoid the creep factor, which is significant, right? Because I think part of the privacy issues and surveillance culture that we have makes that a little bit challenging. But I think you're right. I think that brands that show up in different places, even if it's out of context, that is brand building, right? There's a reason why people still buy, I don't know, billboards on the highway. Like,
Yep.
oh, they are. And I think the creativity that you can do through those channels becomes very interesting. I was on TikTok, I was flipping through, and this guy said something I found interesting. I'm curious. I'll run it by you. I ran it by somebody earlier today. That if you think about social media like as if it's social media, you're not thinking about it right. What he said was you should think about social media platforms as entertainment platforms first. And I was like, that's actually really interesting in context of a B2B thing, because I don't think many of us think about entertainment first.
Yep.
But in an attention economy, I don't know, droning on about stats and efficiency, I'm not sure is the best way to get someone's attention. I don't know. You got thoughts on that? I know you're putting it on the spot, but like, it's interesting.
Absolutely. I think we underestimate how powerful it is to know someone's passion and to be able to associate with that passion and associate your brand with that passion. And so maybe a quick story. We were running BMW as a client at Qualtrics, and we're talking to them about building an epic, customer experience program. And, I've told the story maybe a couple of times before, but just for the audience here, I think we were trying to get a major brand on the platform, and iconic top probably 10 kind of, spender in terms of, worldwide budgets, huge company. And I couldn't get the CMO to engage with anything, ABM, everything we were doing. And I just kind of paused the team and said, what does this person care about? What do they really care about? Found out that they loved BMW. And I had a couple of BMWs, and they were talking about it on X or Twitter at the time. And so I just kind of paused the team and said, what if we were to go do something here? And so I actually got in touch with the BMW North America president, who was working with us on some case studies and things. And I said, hey, what do you think about hosting this person down in South Carolina? Your racetrack, backstage pass, maybe like see the robots, the paint shop, maybe go across the street, race some cars. And you open to that? And he's like, absolutely. Like, let's do it. And I said, okay, what do you think about having maybe 10 of the most epic brands there to talk about the future of customer experience? And he's like, I love it. Let's do it. And so I just sent a note to this person and just said, hey, what do you think about, coming down, meet the president of BMW North America, see the factory? And it was fascinating. The person responded in 8 minutes and said, I'm there. How can I help? And this is after like a year of just every creative strategy we could think of. And in that moment was a light bulb for me where it's like, we could have given them we could have done their job for them and the work for them we could have given them any sort of value, but it really came down to what they're passionate about and creating an experience for them. So that changed my mindset.
That's an incredible story. And it kind of, a couple of things. It speaks to your creativity and thinking outside the box. I also think that people, like, it's really interesting because you can definitely go overboard, right? We've seen the kind of, let's say email spammy strategy. Like someone knows that I went to FSU and, we won a big football game and all of a sudden I'm getting emails like, hey, you saw the Knowles one, like whatever. But it's interesting because what it sounds to me here is like you've melded something really interesting together. And I think, look, as you guys enter the enterprise market, like those kinds of engagement opportunities are everywhere because you're dealing with, large public companies, large companies, CMOs who are just too busy to think about this stuff. That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that. Great story.
That's good. There's also a world of brand and demand. And kind of, I think about, back to your point around, where do you focus? And I think if B2B marketers can think a lot more like B2C marketers in that way, there's power in that. And there's actually more fun in that too. So I think I just encourage us to do that.
I think that playbook, the B2C, and not going overboard, obviously, but the B2C kind of playbook and mentality, customer experience, customer journey design, I think we're starting to see B2B brands kind of hire more B2C marketers, think more about agencies that have done that kind of work. We've seen kind of a little bit of a trend here. We've seen this happen before. Like B2B seems to trail a little bit. Like take video, for example. Video has been very successful, like TV for 100 years or whatever. Like we have TV and we have ads and all of a sudden it's like, well, it's weird that a B2B company would run ads on it. No, it wouldn't. There's a reason why, IBM is heavily invested in the PGA. Like, if like a passionate golf fan, I turn on the thing and all of a sudden there's a brand of, hey, those guys have been trying to contact me for years. And all of a sudden they're on Dustin Johnson's shirt. You never know. It's a different way of thinking. And I think about the Don Draper analogy that I've been working on is I think the B2B marketing universe has been kind of sidelined with a direct marketing mindset, right? Put money in, get kind of leads out. And there's a relationship piece that you just described with your story there that it's really important. And it's how you actually build brand, right? Because that person's probably still telling that story. If that experience was any good in South Carolina, he's probably still telling people like, you're not going to believe what I got to do. This is amazing.
Yep.
I pulled something out of your website I'm interested in because I think it's fascinating. And as a leader, like I just trying to figure out on my own team and looking around. So the website, StackAdapt website says that leaders are all in and that they are force multipliers, which I love that term, force multiplier. I'm curious, when you think about your role as a CMO and the team, I don't know how big your team is, but your team, like, how does that manifest with you just in terms of how you guys run the department, run the team, run the business, and ultimately run that playbook?
Yeah. We're one team. There's no politics here. There's no jerks. And there's just a lot of passion about winning and doing what's right for the customer. And so I think we talk a lot about our values of putting ourselves in their customer's shoes and because we're marketers marketing to marketers. And we're our number one customer as well. We push our product team on our platform. Hey, this could be better. This could work better. So we're almost like a product innovation team inside as a marketing team using our own platform, which is fun. We have incredible founders. Our founders are all in, and as much as they probably don't need to be working, et cetera, like they're all in. Like they want to build a legacy and a lasting company that is adding incredible value to the world. And so that energy transcends throughout the organization. And so I always try to be a person that cares as much as the CEO and I look for folks on my team that care deeply as well. And, I've signed up for, working a lot and doing that in the role I have, but I can always tell when someone cares deeply that it's a career that they're all in on the company. And I think that tends to be a really good indicator that they're translating that to impact in the business. And so you times that by 1,500 employees that we now have, and it creates kind of a magical place.
That's exciting. I'm happy for you that you're in that spot because it's glowing as you're talking about it, which is awesome.
I feel like,
Yeah. So much of the paid ad world feels to me, and I'm not in it every day like you are, but it feels a lot of, obviously rinse and repeat. There's a lot of people who see that works. Let's just copy that. I'm curious, you guys sit on an enormous amount of experimentation, spend, customers. Like, what are you seeing customers and you guys yourselves experimenting with that others aren't talking about yet? Like, what's about to happen with paid media and B2B?
yeah, I think we're seeing just increasingly on the platform that marketers are testing new channels, and we have the ability in the platform to make it very easy to see what's working. And so they're seeing it work. They're doubling down on it. And, the campaigns are exploding. And so we have B2B and many companies that normally wouldn't run connected TV ads or digital out of home ads that are running that now. A lot of audio podcast stuff, a lot of video, testing those different formats. And it's probably like a little bit of like spend you'd put on Google or LinkedIn as a marketer. And, you go allocate some of that to programmatic and just you run tests to see what's working. I think the real kind of story there though is what's your media mix overall of a brand and a performance kind of world? And some would say you could have like a 50-50 mix. Some would say maybe it should be like 70% performance, 30% brand, depending on what your gaps are. But I think the reality of it is that if you only focus on performance, your top of funnel is going to dry up and it's going to be a lot more difficult to hit those targets a year or 2 years down the road. But if you only focus on brand, you're probably going to get fired because you're not driving any performance targets immediately. So there's that balance that is really important. And so I think our customers are trying to find that balance, and we're using a lot of AI in the platform to optimize and recommend what to do next.
It's a great segue too, to this sort of idea of a broken playbook moment. So, scaling up channels, layering in AI, it doesn't happen with a few bumps. I'm curious, was there a moment in the past year or so where your idea of success, like it just completely collapsed and made you take a breath and go, hang on a minute, like this is not working the way I wanted it to?
Yeah. I've definitely had moments, a lot of weeks where I wake up and I see a new AI innovation. I'm like, I'm behind the ball on this. And I've started doing something called AI Coach, where we're starting to kind of crowdsource ideas in the company and the team coming to present, hey, how did we use AI to make a bigger impact this week? And so that's been inspiring to see that. And I say that because like a lot of our data models and a lot of the infrastructure of how we can go scale and create like incredible impact with AI is broken. And you got to get the data right. You got to get the data foundation right, and not being a data person, making sure that I'm trusting people to do the work in the right way to get that done. And then on top of then you take the technology, and then you got process that's changing because now you're working with new technology and tools that is just speed of light change. And then you got people. So you got the technology, the process, and the people, and you combine that into kind of a trifecta. I think there can be a lot of problems in that, but there can be a lot of opportunity. And I think that's this year is like the internet's been created again in AI, and it's like 100 times more valuable than the internet ever was, and 100 times more opportunity. So it's fun time to be alive.
It is. And I think, it has been reimagined. This AI stuff is really wild. I think, it sounds to me like you guys are really seeing real value out of, I think it's called Ivy, if I'm not mistaken. I hadn't had a lot of
Yeah.
time to look at it, but Ivy and some of the other tools you're building. Talk to me like from a CMO seat where you sit, talk to me about the pressure of launching these major innovations, whether it's the email thing or some of the AI, like, and combo that into kind of going into this go-to-market motion for enterprise. Has anything really surprised you, or is it, I'm like asking with a smile, like, or has it just been totally smooth?
Yeah. So I'm fortunate to be at a company that I don't have to build a lot of hype because there's so much stake behind kind of the sizzle, to use that maybe analogy, or maybe a different one, but there's so much innovation happening. It's actually a problem for us to bundle it all together. And we think about like, how do we, tell this story in a compelling way so that everybody can digest and process it all, because there's so much happening. Just our founder, Yang, our CTO is just a beast and just cranks on innovation. It's amazing. And so I take it as, when I joined the company, we were doing, I think 40 releases a quarter, and there was just incredible amount of communication of all these different features and programs that were being launched. We bundled that up together, sort of doing two major ones per year, and being able to tell a bigger story and runway. And what that does for us as a business, it also gives our engineering team and product teams a runway and a date. It's like to have sort of their Super Bowl moment, twice a year. And from a marketer standpoint, I call it kind of a lightning strike moment. It's where you rather than have like a bunch of sort of touch points across the year. You want to be pretty consistent and stay top of mind. But how do you go and like blow the roof off, a couple times a year to be, wow, that company is really innovating. They're really like the company that you should bet on. And that's been the strategy and approach I've taken with it.
That's a playbook unto itself. And it's fascinating as I do more episodes of this show and I get into like, well, what playbooks are we talking about? There's very tactical playbooks, like how do you run an email playbook or a campaign playbook? How do you run a marketing team playbook? How do you run, different layers of playbooks? And here you're talking about an integrated marketing innovation product playbook. You guys it sounds like you were doing a bunch of small releases and sort of flooding the zone with like new features versus saying, hey, wait a minute, we can make a bigger splash. We can do this lightning strike. That is literally a like multidisciplinary and playbook that you sort of redesigned, sounds like fairly recently. And so it's just fascinating. Like I think in these playbooks, we all have them, right? We all have whether it's written down as like, here's the playbook, but we all have a way of doing certain things. And it's interesting to me that, the moment where you go, this isn't really working, let's try something new. And then that becomes the new way of doing it. And it just sort of cycles back through itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Maybe my favorite part of the show is this last segment called forcing yourself. We've already teed this up. I mean, you literally broke your femur just a few weeks into your new job. I cannot imagine what kind of pain, pressure, and obviously then work expectations. The worst thing that happened to me with taking a new job was I got jury duty on my first day. It was not quite.
Maybe that's worse.
Exactly. So take me back to that moment. Like, how did you force yourself mentally, emotionally, physically to show up as a leader when you could have just easily been like, I can't do it. I'm just curious about that process.
Yeah. So we're a fully remote company. So that helped to be able to like, sit in a chair that was least comfortable and I could like have my leg up. But it was interesting, like to show up and have the energy and, I had some medication the first couple of weeks that I was probably not fully present. And so, but I come back to work too, I had the surgery Saturday. I logged in Monday morning. I probably should have taken maybe a couple of days, but I felt the need to be there for the team and to keep building. And I think that the mindset I take is, do the tough things first, first thing in the morning, jump in, don't be afraid to tackle the hardest problems, talk in the mirror to yourself, whatever you need to do to give yourself the confidence to have sort of the swagger and like the commitment to go get after it. So it was a good moment, learning moment for me. I certainly don't wish it didn't happen, but it did. And I learned from it. And I think it's been a good lesson of just resilience for myself, just to know that I can do hard things.
Thanks for sharing that, Ryan. That's incredible. I was thinking to myself as you were talking, like that lesson that you can do hard things is something I hopefully have imparted to my own children, but also learned myself over and over again. It's a really good, empowering lesson that you can survive the challenges and actually thrive through it. So kudos to you. What an experience. Unbelievable. This has been awesome. Thank you so much. I think we've hit some really interesting things. I mean, I think the tool to revolution thing is fascinating. I think that's a framework that like, I think a lot of marketers can lean on a little bit and sort of go like, what are we actually trying to do here? Is tools are important, but moving customers and moving hearts obviously is a big deal. B2C to B2B is, I think, fascinating. We talked about a bunch of evolving playbooks. I love the one about the product release stuff. And obviously we talked about broken femurs and resilience and doing the hard things first. So like incredible. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you? StackAdapt, what's new? Like what's next for you guys? What's next for you?
Yeah. Connect with me on LinkedIn, take a look at StackAdapt. If you're interested in programmatic, you'd appreciate that. If I can be helpful in your journey as you're thinking about running ads and building demand, building pipeline for your business, I'm happy to connect. And, appreciate you, Marc, for having me on today.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for being on. Thank you for watching Playbook Broken. You can find us on YouTube, martech.org, everywhere you get your podcasts or video. If you got questions or comments or feedback, hit me on LinkedIn, leave me a comment.